Hey, Legionnaires, we're dropping a special episode of the Long Live the Legion podcast today, but I don't know. It seems like it's been a slow news week, Jay, so I don't know why we're doing this.
Yeah, this seems like a really strange thing to do. I mean, it's not like there's any exciting news coming out of DC Comics. It's not like they've just announced that there's going to be a new #1 for the Legion of Superheroes coming out in September. It's not like they've announced that one of the best writers for DC, Josh Williamson, is handling it. It's not like they've announced that an Eisner Award-winning artist, Hayden Sherman's drawing it. No. None of that has come out. So this is just going to be a fun waste of time for us. We just wanted to get together and chat about this.
Yes.
Oh, wait.
It's
the
real.
event that we've been waiting for, the announcement we've been waiting for when did we interview Paul Kaminsky? Like a year ago?
Almost a year ago.
And he was dropping hints and kind of saying, and we've been waiting for this. So to say we're excited is a little bit of an understatement.
Let's talk about what happened over the course of the week. So there was a lot of speculation going on over the last few weeks that the solicitations for September for DC were going to be coming out sometime this last week, but nobody really knew if it was going to be Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, because I guess typically they come out on Fridays. And then on Tuesday of last week, Josh Williamson changed his social avatar to this newly stylized Legion symbol, which looks almost like a graffitied Legion symbol, so it had a kind of a cool look to it. And then he starts posting these first issues of certain runs. He posts the Adventure Comics 267. He posts 5 years later V4 #1, and then he posts V4 #0, which is, of course, the first reboot issue. And then, okay, everybody's rubbing their hands together, especially me, and I'm going crazy on social media speculating. Thursday rolls around, and here we go. The news drops that we're getting a new Legion of Superheroes comic book. It's coming in September 2nd.
Yeah, and then suddenly there's a flood of images. There's a press release. We've got a bunch of pictures. We've got a hint of what's going on. And I just wanted to call this out. Like, we knew Josh had been wanting to write this for a while. Like, this is not a secret. You could see during the whole KO storyline and then Darkseid's Legion and all of that, like, he's building up towards this. So this is definitely like a passion project for him. But I'll be honest, like, I have just come to expect from decades of following the Legion, that anytime there's a new Legion book, it's going to be an artist that I've either never heard of or is very, very new to the industry and is just kind of cutting their teeth on the Legion. And I mean, historically, that this has always been true, right? Dave Cockrum started, Mike Grell started. Keith Giffen had done some stuff for Marvel, but he basically kind of made his name on the Legion. I can keep going. Like, Steve Lytle basically started. Same with everybody on the reboot. Like Chris Sprouse basically. Like, again, you don't see artists who are currently working on one of the best-selling books in comics in Hayden Sherman take over the Legion of Superheroes. The last time this happened was Barry Kitson on 3-Boot.
Yeah.
So seeing that announcement, I'll be honest, first thing I did when I saw this announcement is I went back and I read the first trade of Absolute Wonder Woman just to kind of see, like, okay, how do I think this is going to go, or how excited should I be? And I mean, I'm stunned by this. This is an amazing choice. If you want a sign that DC is backing this book and wants it to be successful, this has got to be the purest sign of this. And here's another question. Where is DC finding people like Sherman and like Dan Mora who are drawing like 50 pages a month? Like, how is this possible? Because Sherman's not giving up Absolute Wonder Woman.
Right.
They're going to do both books. And they said that they've been drawing Legion for months now. Like, they're fully engaged in this. So I am very, very excited. Like, this is saying to me, DC wants this to be a hit.
Yeah. What I put on the socials was that they're taking one of my favorite writers in comics today, in Josh Williamson, and one of my favorite pencilers in Hayden Sherman, because, Absolute Wonder Woman is one of my favorite books of that line. I mean, there's a lot of them are very, very good. Actually, they're all very good. But when you kind of rank them, Wonder Woman's always consistently on that top 3. But Wonder Woman is almost consistently there. And the work that Hayden does is just amazing on that book. Right. And it's part of why it's such a great read. And so I am super excited to see what I've seen so far. And so this is what they've shown us today in the last few days has really made me excited about what we're going to be getting in September.
Yeah. Yeah. And I another point I wanted to address, I've seen this a lot online, and I know there's a lot of Legion fans that are sitting there going, really? Another reboot? Like, really? We're recreating the characters again? We're doing this. And I get that. Like, I get the idea of you want to see the Legion that you grew up with and you want to see your favorite versions of the characters. But I kind of look at it and go, what other option did they have? Like, every
Right.
other kick at the can that they've done. So like, go back to, and we can go back in history, right? Like, the Bendis reboot obviously didn't work, and I think they had to leave that in the past. And I would argue that the Retroboot didn't work, and sales prove it. Like, you look
Yeah.
at those sales numbers and people did not want to buy those comics. And look, you can argue it's because they were badly done or they were badly written. Like, I'm currently in this reread of like Legion volume, what am I on? 7, 6, 7 and
Yeah.
Legion Lost.
Something like that.
And yeah, these are not great comic books. I mean, the art's good for the most part, but yeah, the stories are just not there. And if I'm DC Comics, I sit there and I say, the last truly successful Legion book that sold copies consistently, that made money, was 3-Boot. And I know nobody wants to admit that, but that's basically where we're going. And what did 3-Boot do? Completely rebooted the whole thing, completely threw out everything, and they moved forward in a different direction. And I'm also going to say this, and this is something that I hate to admit because I'm not the target. Jim,
Yeah.
you're not the target audience. Like,
Exactly right.
yeah,
That's
like
exactly
anybody
right.
who grew up, like, this has got to be a book that my son would want to read. And my son
Absolutely.
hates reading, right? Like, does not want to read anything. But I'm going to shove this in front of his face and go, hey, tell me what you think. Like,
Yeah.
does this work for you?
Yeah.
Because that should be the audience. They should be looking at the 16, 18-year-old, 20-year-old person who's in the comic shop who doesn't know who the Legion is, doesn't care about how many children Lightning Lad and Saturn Girl have, and doesn't, like, they want good stories, well-drawn stories. And I think this is probably the smartest choice going forward.
Absolutely. One of the things, and we could talk about a lot of the failures, we probably will hear over the course of the next however long we're going to be talking about this. But when this news was coming out and these images were coming out, I thought a lot about what we've talked about over the last couple of years, where, and Jay, you've been very consistent about this and saying the Legion has to move forward, right? We can't have these retreads of the old stories for nostalgia's sake or whatever. We have to move something forward in time, because when you look at V3 and 5 years later and the reboot, they're great for what they are and for their time, but they are products of their time. So it doesn't make any sense to bring that into the modern day and in that same context. So the context needs to evolve, the characters need to evolve, and the design needs to evolve. And the other thing that we mentioned is that in order to be successful, I think you've made this point too, Jay, that manga is a big deal these days, right? And I would argue that the teaser images that we've seen are very manga-esque from what Hayden Sherman has created.
So I was going to go in a different direction on the style that I'm seeing in this, but that's a good call. I hadn't thought of that one. I hadn't thought of that one, but I agree. And we have made this point before in the podcast that, like, I know Giffen was very manga influenced when he got on, because and at the time in the 80s, nobody had seen any of this stuff. So it was very, very different. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm going to reiterate what you just said. Like, it's got to move forward. It's got to push forward. You know, again, like, as much as I love staring at the Mike Grell costumes of the 70s for a variety of reasons, and but that's a product of the 70s. Like, that's very much this is what it should look like. It's the same with anything. Like, does James Bond work today if you just make another James Bond movie that feels like a Roger Moore movie? Well, no, it's got to be something different, and they've got to reimagine it. And it's the same, like, you can't do Star Trek like they did I would even say, like, you can't do Star Trek like they did in Next Generation, and that's 30 years ago. You've got to keep changing and evolving. And I know a lot of fans get really pissed. They want their version or their show. Yeah. And like you said, like, the comics are still there. They're still good. If I want to read, the Levitz Giffen, the Levitz Lytle stuff, I just pull them out of my long box and I get that enjoyment out of it. But if DC's trying to track that, it would be the same. If you're a Superman fan and you love the Triangle era, do you want them to just keep doing that over and over again? Like, no, they have to update Superman. And the costume obviously hasn't really changed, but Superman's very different from what he was back then. I would argue Batman's very different from his peak. Like, I think of, like, I mean, one of the best things that happened for the X-Men was when Grant Morrison took over and basically said, okay, everything that happened in the past is true, but I'm throwing everything else out. So like new costumes, new this, new
Yeah.
look, and they came in and they made all these changes.
Just think about, just you mentioned Batman. Just think about how over the last, 40 years, all these things that they've added, Tim Drake as Robin, Jason coming back as Red Hood, Damian, all of the Batgirls, and that whole family that they built around Batman. That's just been additive. The costumes designs change every now and then, every several years, but that mythos just keeps on becoming additive. And I think there's two things that they're doing right here. The first is that they are starting this from a square one. They're talking about how this team is being formed. So they're going to be focusing on individual characters as they come into the team. That's how you do it. That's how the reboot did it. That's part of why the reboot was successful for the first couple of years, was because we were able to grow with the team and learn who these characters are. And then the other thing they're getting right here is that this is an additive team, meaning and this is based on what Josh Williamson has said on the socials over the last several days, is that this will incorporate characters from the classic team and the reboot team. People were asking him left and right, what characters are going to be there? XS, who else did he say? Gates, things like that. He's like, yes. Everybody's going to be back, and that's how you do it. You can't have this. This was one of the mistakes with the 3-boot. In fact, there's a couple things that I'll talk about around that, but one of the mistakes about the 3-boot and the retro boot and New 52 and Bendis was that they didn't bring any of those reboot characters into the picture. In fact, Levitz basically had XS and Gates and basically kind of threw them away. So if you're a reader, whether you're a long-time reader or a short-time reader or whatever, or a reader and you want to go back, you're starting in this new series and then you want to start reading what's come before, you want to be able to have these points of reference. And the fact that they have not been additive of these characters over the years has been a big miss. And I think part of why the Legion hasn't been as successful over the last 20 years.
Yeah. And I think that's a great point, because I think that's been one of the problems, is that a lot of the Legion reboots have been, I want to write the stories from when I was a kid and I read these comics, instead of saying, how do I write stories that are going to appeal to a new generation of readers, right? And I mean, I know like complimenting Bendis is something that just doesn't happen when we talk about the Legion, but I will say that is one thing that he did try to do. He tried to point in a forward direction. He just didn't, and it like failed on many, many levels. But at least that was the impetus there. And this is one of those where you can tell, like, as you're reading over the comments, you hear, you read what Josh is saying. And I think especially as you look over the artwork, you say, okay, these are people who know these characters, who love these characters, who want to connect to everybody, but they're bringing it into 2026, right?
Yeah.
So it's not Josh Williamson saying, I want to write my favorite version of the Legion and just do that and ignore everything else. It's, I want to write a Legion that's going to work for everybody, but most especially, I want to bring in the people who wouldn't normally read the Legion.
Yeah. New readers. Absolutely. And tell funky stories, funky sci-fi stories, man. I mean, it's just so funny to me how just in the images that we've seen without any text, any word balloons, between the art that Hayden's created, that they've shown online, and just the covers and even the alternate covers, the world building is just in these images alone. We haven't even gotten to read anything yet, and we're seeing this world building going on just graphically, and I'm really excited for this.
One of my constant complaints about, I'm going to say from the moment Giffen left 5 years later to today, has always been that the Legion didn't feel like it was actually 1,000 years in the future.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like it was just something that was just in a different part of the DC universe, but it was basically the same time period. Whereas like right now on my computer, I have this image of, I'm going to assume it's Metropolis in the 31st century. It's this massive spread, black and white picture that got released. And you look at this and this looks like nothing that you would see anywhere else in the DC universe. It's a combination of old and new. It's this absolutely beautiful design. You have this massive statue of Superman in the background to show how important he is to the future. There's so much being conveyed on the page, and it feels like something from the future. It doesn't feel like something from today. And I love this when I look at this. And I've said this for as long as I can think of. Like, this is what I want. I want to see the Legion that doesn't look like anything we could see in a comic that we're reading right now. And I've made this comment a few times, like, if you're doing technology that's the same as what you'd see in a Marvel movie, you've failed in your idea of what the Legion of Superheroes is.
Yeah.
So when I see like that image of, I think it's Brainiac, and I think there's 5 different Brainiacs, right?
Yeah.
And they're in this room, and you can tell it's like it's an information session. There's video everywhere, and they're all on these floating discs. And I'm like, yes, I haven't seen that. This is something I haven't seen in a comic. You know, it's funny, like we've got an upcoming episode where we're going to talk about Brainiac 5. And one of the points that I was going to make is like Brainiac 5 should be 1,000 times smarter than Reed Richards. So if I'm reading a Fantastic Four comic, Brainiac 5 should make him look like an idiot.
Yeah.
And I look at this and I go, maybe we have this. Like maybe this is where we're going. Like this is right.
So, well, let's tell you what. We've kind of buried the lead here because we just started talking about stuff, and we haven't really talked about what they've announced from what this story is going to look like, what this world is going to look like. So let's pause here because we're like 20 minutes into this and we haven't really talked about that. So let's talk about the press release. Do you want to go ahead and read that?
I will. So, and again, I apologize because we're jumping all around. I think it's just we're so excited. We just like, I got to talk about this. I got to talk about this.
It's like Christmas morning.
Yes, exactly. So on a quick aside. So literally I was in my comic shop yesterday. I said, I want to like put the Legion of Superheroes on my pull list. And I was this close to going, so how many different covers are you going to get in? And can I get every single one? And is that the weirdest request? So it is a little Christmas morning. And I'm sure my wife will not be happy when that bill comes out. But anyways, okay. So this is the press release that we got. I'm just going to read the whole thing. I'm sure every Legion fan's kind of seen it, but let's just talk about sort of point by point. A new tomorrow begins for the Legion of Superheroes. Joshua Williamson and Hayden Sherman reimagine the future of the DC universe. 1,000 years after the last son of Krypton's rocket crashed on the Kent farm comes a new future inspired by the Man of Tomorrow. So let's just stop here. I'm guessing that means no Superboy inspiration.
Apparently, yeah. It sure does seem like it's a Superman-inspired team and future versus Superboy. So, we'll have to see.
Now, what that might mean as well is that's a good way to get Superboy into the future because they're no longer inspired by him. They're just like, hey, we want you to work with us. Yeah. And that would be Superman's son, right? We'd have.
Well, no, I mean, I think we have 2 ways of doing this. We could get, John Kent back in this Legion, that'd be okay. We could just get the Wade Superboy in, and that would be awesome as well.
Yeah. Okay. Continuing. But this new future is in danger. Superheroes are outlawed. Deadly enforcers known as the Persuaders keep the populace of the United Planets in check. Worlds are at war, and this dark tomorrow's last glimmer of hope, R.J. Brand, has been brutally murdered. Okay, so let's start with the Persuaders. So one of the big images that's come is you see these winged creatures with these huge glowing axes, and they've basically taken Persuader from Fatal 5, and they've turned this into what I'm guessing is like the police force of this future, or maybe
that or something like that, some kind of enforcement unit. What this reminded me of in the Absolute titles is in Absolute Superman, you have this concept of the Peacekeepers, right? And this is like Peacekeeper John Cena, the character, but as a team. And so there's lots of Peacekeepers that have the same outfit. So I kind of got a similar vibe with this. So the 2 things that I think are interesting about this is that, we see several characters that are these apparently persuaders. That's I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The big one has wings. And so that raises a whole bunch of questions all by itself. Is this Dawnstar? Is this a Thanagarian? What's the deal here? So I can't wait to find out what that answer is. And then you have these energy axes, right? So obviously these are inspired by the atomic axe of the OG Persuader. And is this some avenue on how we're going to get a Fatal 5?
All right. And the next part of this paragraph that stands out is the superheroes are outlawed. So I think we're getting a very 3-boot-esque kind of idea of that. Like this is teenagers against the government or teenagers against the people in charge. So we have this built-in rebellious aspect. So, I mean, again, not really surprised. Like, as I said earlier in the podcast, like 3-boot was the most successful reboot of the Legion in the last 35 years. So not a shock that they've called in. And as you said before, like they're pulling from every version. So why not take elements of every version of the Legion? And that's what we've got here.
And one of the things about this too, this is why I like this, is that we're seeing this again from the formation of the team's perspective. The problem, one of the core failures of the 3-boot was the fact that you had this adults versus kids setting, but we were never told why that they were so upset and, why they were rebelling. I mean, it was very vaguely because they're controlling our lives. Well, okay. But I don't know if that means full on rebellion. When you have a situation where there's actively bad things happening, that sounds much more engaging from a reader's perspective. Because I could never understand it, honestly. In the Freeboot, that whole thing just felt like a lot of teenagers complaining about stuff, not really fighting for anything meaningful.
Yeah, I mean, I know there was the one plot line in Freeboot where they revealed like it was actually mind control and the rings were blocking that. But yeah, I mean, a lot of the Legion, and I remember making this comment on a couple of the reviews, like there were moments where the Legion kind of just came across as bullies, like just treating all the
Right.
adults like garbage. And you were like, okay, so who's the hero here? Like, who am I supposed to be cheering for? Whereas if we set up right from the very beginning, like, hey, there's a bunch of killer persuaders with atomic axes walking around, like, controlling everybody with an iron fist. So now we have this sort of anti-fascist or anti-dictatorship plot line, like run right into it. There's a ton of stuff we can do. And if they set that background, I think that's a really good move. Then we get the first kind of big surprise plot line is RJ Brand is murdered right at the very beginning. So we don't get that epic Legion origin story where they save him from assassination and then he puts the team together. It kind of looks like the opposite has happened. So like he's been murdered and then that's going to inspire everybody to come together, which leads to next paragraph of the press release. Can the mysterious Brainiac 1 of 5 solve Brand's murder? To restore hope to the universe, he must assemble a legion of gifted young rebels from across the cosmos, but they are scattered across the universe. So I'm not doing the press release much credit because it's exclamation points on every sentence and I don't want to just go.
You don't want to yell.
Yeah. So again, Brainiac 1 of 5. So do we have 5 Brainiacs?
I think so. Well, so here's the thing. So when we talk about that picture you were referring to earlier, where we see 5 different Brainiacs. To me, and I guess we're going to see, but I'm speculating here. I'm thinking that there's 5 entities, but they kind of come together as one. So he can parallel process, if you will, right, across 5 different entities. And then also, he does have 5, I guess, orbs or circles on his head, on his bald green head. Yeah. So typically Brainy's had 3, but now we actually have 5. So I don't know if there's going to be any significance to any one of them going to light up in brighter than the others to designate which of the 5 that this Brainiac might be, So I'm very curious to see where they go with this.
Yeah, I mean, and there could be a lot of fun here in that you've got, I mean, if they wanted to write 5 different personalities for the 5 different characters, or if you can say like each is an expert at one thing, like there's a lot of fun that you can have here. There's the painted picture by Mark Spears on the press release that, doesn't make him look the most kindly of Brainiac 5s, but it's a really interesting take, which I kind of dig, like just the whole idea of like, let's expand what this character could be. It also pushes, I guess I'm going to call him Brainiac 1. It also pushes Brainiac 1 to the forefront of the Legion, which he's kind of been already, but this is sort of that first real, like, no, he's the person behind this super team. He's the person behind the team. Because, I mean, you can make the argument he's the only Legionnaire who's been a Legionnaire for the longest amount of time without ever taking a break.
Right.
Right? Like, if you go through every single version of the Legion, right, maybe Chameleon Boy and like, or Phantom Girl, but like he's been there, like every one of the founders has resigned at one point and walked away. Triplicate Girl obviously left for a long time. He's been sort of that center, and he's been one of the writers' favorites from the beginning. Like he's always there.
Well, he did actually quit towards the end of the V3 run.
Yeah, but that was like for what, 6 issues? No.
yeah, right, exactly. It was like for a handful of issues.
Yeah, and then the whole Legion fell apart as soon as he quit because they're like, we have nobody to run the tech. So it's like that. Last sentence, but it's just the kind of sales pitch of this. Witness the dawn of a new future of in DC Comics architect Joshua Williamson and Eisner-winning superstar artist Hayden Sherman's Legion of Superheroes. You will never look at tomorrow the same way again.
Yes.
Okay, so
that
does exactly what it's supposed to do.
Yeah,
Here's enough to whet your beak, get you interested, but it's not telling you anything.
Well, yeah, exactly. It'll color me interested. So, but I think one of the things that's really cool here is that you have all these different worlds. So we have that universe where there's many worlds, and it seems like there's going to be one rebel on each of these planets that's going to be the person that Brainiac 1 of 5 picks, right? And so we're given hints of the founders, right? We see a lot of art with the founders. So we see Lightning Lad, Cosmic Boy, and Saturn Girl. And then we see some others here as well, some of which are fairly identifiable and some aren't. So it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. So let's talk about some of these images that we're seeing of the characters.
Okay, so which image do we want to start with?
I think we should talk about some of these covers and some of the other character designs or character images that we've seen.
Okay, so if you're okay with this, I wanted to start with the Yasmin Putri 3 covers that she did.
Yes.
And so it's each of the Legion Trinity, right? So let's start with the Saturn Girl cover. We'll kind of go through those. And I really, really love these covers, not just because she is a stunningly good artist.
Oh, yeah.
And I think it was at a Justice League annual or a DC Universe annual that she did a few months ago. If you haven't read it, I'm just blown away by how talented she is. Just on a complete aside, I grew up with DC Comics being the company that you bought for the story, and the art was always secondary. And the fact that they now have both is why they're kicking Marvel's butt on so many different levels, right?
It really
so anyways,
is.
So this is a really fascinating cover. We obviously have a teenage Imra Ardeen. She's sitting in her bed, headphones on, which is kind of funny that 1,000 years from now, we'd still have big clunky headphones, but that might be like a telekinetic, it's a better way to kind of control her powers. It's, a very sullen teenage girl sitting there. There's a very interesting part in the bottom right corner where obviously she's cut up one of her pillows with a pair of scissors. So this is a girl who is not happy with the way things are going on, but it really conveys like a great sense. What I love is the huge Saturn in the background, the way she's done it with, there's the window behind her, but that she's actually kind of done the rings. Right. It's just a really compelling image. I really dig it.
Yeah, I love this. I love her look with the, I don't know, there's something about her hair and the costume. I'm really liking how they're showing her here.
Yeah, and I do love the fact that for all of the updating, for all the changes, we're keeping the color patterns the same, and we're keeping, so it's a lot of pinks and a lot of whites, and because that's Saturn Girl, right? The next image is the Cosmic Boy one, and remember months and months and months ago when we talked about Cosmic Boy, and I said, I want him to be an athlete. I want him to be written like an athlete and drawn like an athlete. And I look at this image, and that arrogant, I am the best at Magno Ball look on his face.
Trophies everywhere.
Like to me, I'm just like, this is just capturing what I wanted out of Cosmic Boy. And I like the fact that they've kept the circles for his powers. Like that's still there on the image. I really dig this one. And again, colors have stayed the same. We got the purples, the blues. So thoughts?
Oh, I love it. And then, so this is going to, well, I guess I'll put a pause on that, and because we'll reference this image when we talk about another piece of art that dropped as well.
Okay. The one other thing I wanted to point out, which I think is maybe it's kind of like how, like the scissors and the pillow with Saturn Girls, the trophies on the floor. Like it's just this little subtle bit where they show he's won so many trophies that he just tosses them on the ground and he doesn't care.
Yeah.
That's telling you something about Rock. Okay.
Right.
Third one, Lightning Lad. And of course, I'm going to assume that's Mech in the background.
Me too. That's what I'm assuming as well.
So this was the one I get serious 3-boot vibes from this
absolutely.
one. Right? He's reading a copy of Action Comics #1. He's using his lightning powers to be able to read in the dark, which I thought is really, really cool. He's obviously afraid of his older brother, which is a great little part of this. And I like how they've got the bust of Superman in the beside him, the statue of Superman.
Yep.
Because one thing that I really liked, when we talked about that Smallville episode, it was Lightning Lad who was the one who was the most obsessed with Superman. And he was like, you're so cool. Can I have something? Da-da-da. And we're getting that here. So is Josh Williamson pulling in from like every part of Legion appearances and
really
kind of pulling all of these different things?
It really
it's quite
seems
cool.
Like
Yeah. Thoughts?
Yeah, I love it. I mean, everything that you mentioned, I hit on just the same way. I was like, wow, this is really cool. He's just a pull from all the different Legion histories that we've had, kind of distilled into one image. It's really, really cool. And then it also makes me think, okay, what are they going to be doing with Mech? That makes me, makes me speculate a little bit more. We might already have another built-in villain, so I can't wait to see.
Well, I mean, Mech is, I think, at his best when he's either the villain who's, torturing Garth and Ayla, or I mean, I did like when they did it in Reboot, and they actually showed he was more jealous than anything else.
Yeah,
they could have a lot of fun with this.
Yeah. The other
you
thing
know,
too is that I have a feeling that even though I think Brainiac 1 of 5 is going to be kind of the manipulator of getting the ball rolling here, I'm wondering if Garth is going to be our reader representative, if you will, because he's the comic collector, right? So he has his comic books, he has a whole stack of them, he has the bags, right? So I'm just kind of curious of what they're going to be doing here.
yeah, if they turn Mech into the person the reader associates with most, I think it's a great choice
You mean
because
Garth?
Garth, sorry. It's one of those days.
I hope they don't identify with Mech. That would be pretty bad.
Well, you never know nowadays. With
Yeah,
how many
this is
people love
true.
Superboy Prime,
Yeah.
it's possible. All right. Next image you wanted to talk.
Okay, so let's talk about the first image that dropped that we saw. It was dropped by one of the accounts that kind of tracks DC on, I think this was dropped on Wednesday, and then it got undropped because I think they either they dropped it accidentally on purpose or somebody screwed up the embargo. And this is a cover, it's an alternate cover of Superman and Michael J. Fox in an homage to the Back to the Future cover, stepping out of a time bubble, and then you have the founder Legionnaires in the background. And this is by Dan Mora. And when this dropped, everybody was speculating two things. It was, is Dan Mora going to be the one of the artists here ongoing? And the other question is, okay, those characters in the back, they're obviously the founders. Is that their actual costume, or are these like civilian clothes? And it looks like these are going to be the costumes for at least the first chunk of this run.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess if the idea is that they're going to be rebels and they're working undercover, I mean, I don't know if they want to go right into like a superhero costume. And as well, it's a different look, right? It's a different sort of style that we're going with. Yeah, I mean, it's a funny cover when it got released because everyone was just, who is this person in the front? Nobody knew it was Michael J. Fox. But and the other one, I did read a bunch of stuff where I was like, oh, Dan Moore is drawing the Legion, and then DC had to quickly go, no, this is just a cover. Calm down,
right.
We have somebody else. What I'm really happy about, like when I look at the cover, the costumes in the background, I remember the first thing that kind of leapt out to me was the costumes kind of tell you a little bit about the characters as well, which,
Yep.
So first of all, I mean, any Lightning Lad costume should have the big lightning bolts on the shoulders. I'm very much pro that. And I think it's just a great design. I think what's fascinating is you have Saturn Girl, whose character is probably far more reserved and far more like hides her personality. So of course she's wearing more clothing. She's got the big bulky jacket. She's covering herself up. Whereas Cosmic Boy kind of looks like he just walked out of a nightclub, which probably fits. Like, I think just judging on the images, they're going with a very different Cosmic Boy from what we've seen before.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see.
And I think it's an interesting take. Like you kind of get a sense of their personalities just by looking at the costumes, which I think is a great choice.
Yep. And then now let's talk about the picture by V. Ken Marion. And this, for me, this is my favorite of the bunch. And this is, I think, what has me excited the most. This is what really got me juiced for this Legion. And this is Lightning Lad is riding what I can best describe as a lightning cycle, where the wheels are basically lightning, and I'm assuming it's being powered by his own powers. And I was like, this is such a badass idea. I love this idea because, I mean, for one thing, it's like you see his attitude. You can actually see his personality here. So you can tell he's a little bit of a freewheeling guy, and as he kind of always is in most of these renditions. But he's riding this lightning cycle. He has his hand up with a big bolt of energy about ready to be discharged. And it's just the concept of this, we're talking about these different ideas for technology in the future. This is cool. This is really, really freaking cool. I mean, when I first saw it, I thought it was like like the speeder bikes from Star Wars was what I thought it was originally, which would have been cool as well, right? Because I think that's something that they should have in the Legion. But this is just an awesome idea. And so it made me think, okay, based on what we see here and what we've seen or what we've read in the press release, is Lightning Lad some kind of a vigilante hero on Wineth? Is that what gets Brainiac 1 of 5's attention, right? So I can't wait to find out.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I've said this for a while. Like, if you're doing a Legion of Superheroes comic, you should turn to the artists or turn to have the writer and just go, come up with the craziest ideas you can think of. Let's have some fun with this. And so a lightning cycle powered by his superpowers that he's cruising around And again, like if they're all supposed to be 16, you have kids who are 16. I have a kid who's 16. I guarantee you, if my kid had lightning powers, this is what, like, he would be going nuts on this, flying around, going crazy.
Yeah.
It just captures that teen energy as well, like that sense of youth and I'm gonna go crazy, and I don't want to say I don't care about the consequences. Like the old man in me looks at this and goes, "So what happens if he gets blasted and there's no wheels to the thing and then it crashes?" But it's like if you're 16, you're not thinking that. And to kind of build off that, like there's that other image that does that kind of shows more of this, where they show sort of it's Lightning Lad going into battle on the same sort of thing with the lightning tires, and he's fighting against some guy with a mohawk.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that kind of builds
the comic page. The comic page.
The comic pages.
Yeah.
And you go like, oh, okay, like this is like, maybe this is his vehicle of choice. And we're going to see this a lot in the series, because it does also show up in the huge picture that we referenced before with all the pictures of the Persuaders. He's at the bottom,
Yep.
With a mask, which is really kind of fascinating.
Yeah. And a cloak. Right.
Yeah,
exactly.
Am I the only one who got real Akira vibes from that one?
Of the black and white sequence?
No, like the motorcycle and the cloak and the, like, that, to me, that was just Akira.
All right, I can see it. Yeah.
Like
okay.
I'm just like, that's Akira right there. And so, like, if that's one of the futuristic influences on this, 2 thumbs up.
Here's the funny thing, you're gonna laugh. So I'm looking at the black and white page from Hayden Sherman, where Lightning Lad is chasing after this gang or whatever it is on their speeder, and there's a sequence here where Lightning Lad basically rolls over the ceiling of the tunnel that they're in, and let's say I think it's some kind of an energy tunnel or whatever. I'm looking at this image and I'm just flashing back to playing Batman Arkham Knight, the video game, and when you're driving the Batmobile, you actually get to do this.
Yes.
So I'm like, all right, this is awesome. I am all in on this so much just from these images here. I love it.
Well, at the end of the day, why should they stick on the bottom of a tunnel? It's the 31st century. We're talking about lightning powers. Like, why not? Why not just go let's go 10 steps further than any other comic has. Yeah, it's nice. Okay, next one you want to look at.
Let's look at some of the Hayden Sherman pictures. So, and let's, I guess the first one I'm going to look at here, this is another Lightning Lad image, and where we see him with a pack of some kind in his outfit, and he's kind of looking up into the stars. And what I'm finding very fascinating about this, and just, this is why I guess Hayden Sherman is such an unusual choice, but a great one for this book, is that they have their own very specific style. Right. Sherman does. And it really works, definitely works for Absolute Wonder Woman. And I'm loving this because it's giving us the Legionnaires in a way we've never really seen them before. I don't know, a good word might be softer, maybe. Is that a good word to use? Because they, as far as how they're presented, I don't know. We're so used to seeing the Legionnaires, especially when we're talking about the classic ones that we've seen in the retro boot and the original. Yeah, they're grown up. Right. These characters here they're definitely drawn as being kids. And we haven't really seen that very much since Jeff Moy, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was one of the things I remember. It was Moy and Chris Batista seemed to be the only artists who embraced the fact that these are teenagers, and everybody else just drew them as like shorter adults or just as adults.
Or just adults.
I agree. Yeah. Like I'll be honest, this sounds like a crazy statement to make, but there's a part of me that like looks at this and goes like, this is as soft as Ayla would be drawn, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. And you sort of say like, okay, like he's drawing teenagers, he's drawing kids, he's drawing, it's that attention to detail that you just love to see. I love the fact like he's added the freckles on his face that you'd see in a redhead. He's added, like it's got the wrinkles and it's got that, like it looks lived in. It doesn't look perfect. Like we're creating this universe. It kind of calls back to when Giffen was on 5 years later. And it was like you could feel the universe, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that's what I really dig.
That tracks too with their image of Rock, of Cosmic Boy. It's a very similar thing. You can tell, he's on Brawl. It's much more of a rough world. He has these interesting shoes. They're almost like hooves. So I'm assuming that he has actual real feet in there. But
so.
It's the same kind of thing. He's looking up into the sky.
So my question is, when I look at this picture, is what are the green tentacles coming out of the ground? I love the buildings in the background. Like we've obviously gotten rid of Wynath as like farming community or Amish community, which seems to be how it's been drawn, and instead we have like, and we have this little bit of a threat in the background. Like, what are these things or what's going on? it's enough to make you want to read more. Like,
Yeah.
okay, give
Yeah.
me more of this. So,
Yeah, and then we go to the Saturn girl picture, and it makes me wonder if I'm looking at her costume. She has these big shoes on, big sneakers. Reminds me of XS or Impulse, right? And then she has her, I guess it's like a purple bodysuit, and then what looks like a homemade Saturn shirt kind of on top of that. And then she has her big puffy red jacket or pink jacket, I guess. Well,
yeah.
it looks more red than pink, and she's also looking up into the sky.
So that's a big theme of all this, is that they're looking towards, right? They're looking up towards the future, right? Like,
Yeah.
so they've got to get off their planet, or they've got to get to go somewhere else, right? Which I
They're
think is
called by destiny.
there you go. That's a good way of looking at it, right? They're really interesting takes on the character. Again, the art is saying so much about who they are,
Yeah.
without any words, without any dialogue. I think that's
Exactly.
a really key part of that.
So let's talk about the wraparound cover that Sherman made. That is the big shot that I think everybody's talking about. And this is where we see the Persuaders, and we see that image of Lightning Lad on his bike zipping around. But we also see a few more characters in addition to the I guess the traditional founders plus Brainiac.
Yeah. Yeah. So we've got the obvious ones. We have a new triplicate girl.
Yep. Who is a person of color.
Yes. And, again, colors, the colors have stayed the same, which is really great. I like the fact they're keeping the triangle motif from a number of different versions of that, which is a really good look. We have a new Matter Eater lad.
Or lass.
Sorry. Yeah. I guess I shouldn't automatically assume
Yeah,
that.
I mean, because some of the other images that have been shown, and I think, I'm not 100% sure, so I probably shouldn't be saying this, but I want to say that Williamson may have confirmed that that this Matter Eater is a lass. So
okay. Well, I mean, I'm looking at like the character designs that got released as well, where it's sort of a little bit rougher sketches, and it looks like it's Matter Eater lass. So yeah. I did misspeak. We will go with that. And then there's one who's behind Matter Eater lass, who is also wearing the lightning bolts.
Yeah, so what I would assume is Ayla.
But I mean, the drawing that I'm staring at kind of looks like it's male. So I don't know. Like
don't know. Well,
it's kind of a weird one. Or I shouldn't say weird. It's just, it would be a different take.
And it is kind of a farther away picture too. So
yeah. I agree. But it's one of those things where you just never know. Like you say, hey, if you want to do something different, let's break the mold, so to speak. Or, I mean, would we have a problem if I'm not going to ask this question like that. We could have a trans character.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
That's the other thing I was thinking for this Matter Eater character could be non-binary.
Yeah, like why not have as much diversity as we can?
Absolutely, and this is the time to do it, right? I think that would be a great step for DC to do this on the Legion, because I know God knows we've been critical about it, of the fact that, and we're going to have more episodes about this in the future, about how even though that there's been non-binary and LGBTQ representation in the Legion, it's been slow to get there, and partly it's due to society and where the risks that DC and Warner Brothers want to take at any given time. But now we're in a time where it's I think it's fairly accepted, and I think that's going to be exciting if we can get this in this book.
I agree. Okay, and then in the middle of the cover, the blonde-haired character right underneath the Persuader. Are we saying Element Lad, or do you have another call on that one?
That is my knee-jerk assumption. My outside bet would be perhaps it could be an enemy character. Maybe it's a version of Leland McCauley.
I was going to say the exact same thing.
I mean, and the reason I say this is because that particular character is facing the other way from where the heroes are facing.
Yeah, and also doesn't look happy.
Yeah.
Kind of looks a villainous. Kind of like I was looking at it, I was like, oh, it's Element Lad, because you have the blonde hair and the color, like the color of the costume is kind of like, oh, okay, it's it's bordering on the pinkish.
Yeah.
But also looks pretty nasty. Now, unless they embrace the whole Legion Lost twist and Jan is actually a villain at the beginning of this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's entirely possible. My thought as well, just as you said, was the McCauley. Another one, the more I kind of stare at this, does it look like they're lightning bolts on the chest? And is this just mech'd and they colored the hair wrong? Or they colored the hair yellow instead of white? Like, is that possible? Another? I mean, we're kind of reaching because we're just kind of guessing on this. It's the same, like when you go to the bottom right corner, and there's the character that looks like Robin
Yeah.
that everybody is staring at going, who is this? Like, what's
Yes.
going on? It's a masked.
Yeah,
And
a masked crusader. My initial reaction, and I was proven wrong, is that it would be Ultra Boy, and because you could say that black patch over the left breast could have the his dragon or gang symbol or whatever it is. But Williamson said no, that is not the character. So I don't know. We'll have to
so
see what that
I
is.
have a guess that I have not seen anywhere.
Okay.
So this is a first if everybody's lasted this long in the podcast. So I think it is supposed to be a Robin costume because
Okay.
the whole thing is 3-boot, and it's like they're all inspired by the heroes of the past. So they're essentially dressing up like they're heroes.
Yeah.
Who is the Legionnaire who has no superpowers who would be most inspired by Robin? That's Karate Kid.
Okay.
That's my guess on this.
Well, remember when we had Paul on last year, he made the comment of, we look at these Legionnaires like they're cosplayers, right? And so I think that's going to be an element of this book, honestly.
Yeah.
So based on what he was saying last year.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I thought of this, of like who would sit there and say I'm going to take over this sort of character, right? And I said Karate Kid. We're going to go with Karate Kid. So and also maybe it's wishful thinking. I just want a good Karate Kid in this book.
Yeah.
Maybe that's part of it as well. So we'll go with that. Okay. Is there any other images we wanted to talk about? I think that kind of covers everything. And I think we don't want to just bore everybody by going, hey, look at this picture, look at this picture.
Yeah, exactly. I think the only other one we should probably just mention is the Magno Ball game picture, which is also awesome. It really starts showing off Rock as an athlete and kind of get to see Magno Ball actually really being played. And it looks like kind of a nasty little sport there sometimes.
Well, I think it should be, right?
Yeah.
Like it should be a nasty sport. We'll go with that. And if I'm not mistaken, if you kind of look at some of the posters in the background, some of them do say "Go Rock," and it's so it's very much setting up that he's the star, and he's which is kind of what we wanted to see. I actually got sort of stuck trying to figure out all the interlac, and then I said, you know what, I'd rather just look at the pictures, because it's like, have you ever seen like those old 70s sci-fi movies like Rollerball or like where they tried to create like a futuristic sport, and they're always sort of stuck by like the technology at the time. Like so anybody, and I'm not talking about the newer Rollerball, which was horrible. I'm talking about the old one with James Caan, which honestly like hasn't aged especially well, but for an old person like me.
Yeah, I think about the Triad game that they had in Battlestar Galactica, like in the 70s version. It was very cheesy. It was basically basketball, but
yeah. And I look at this and I kind of go like, hey, they're finally kind of saying, let's make this into a sport that doesn't just look like soccer, but we're controlling the ball with magnetic powers.
Right.
So that's kind of nice. And again, like I can't say enough, like this attention to detail in the background, the dynamism of the artwork, like it just so comes off the page. I wanted to ask this, like you had mentioned like manga in the past, like earlier on. Mm-hmm. Is there like an artist or a style when you look at Hayden Sherman's work that really kind of stands out and makes you go, like, this feels like this other artist, or this is somebody who, I know it's tough because he's got a very distinct style, but there was two artists who really leapt to mind, and I just wanted to see if there was anybody.
Yeah, I'd have to think about that one, because the answer is yes, but I can't tell you who. Because my brain is mush.
No. That's, and I did throw that question. There was no prep on this. It was just, I remember as I'm reading over, because I've read over Absolute Wonder Woman a couple of times, but as I was staring at these science fiction pages, all I kept thinking was Mobius.
Okay.
Which is like the highest compliment I can give an artist, right? Like, and I'm just thinking of like the Inkle or like stuff like that. And I was like, okay, this is somebody who's, and especially like, the colors on a lot of these pages, it gives me very sort of European style vibes. So like Mobius really kind of leapt out at me, especially the page of Brainiac 5 when he's in his, or Brainiac 1, sorry, when he's in his room. And we should call out the colorist, Tamara Bonvillain. Wow. Like the palette is just wow on these pages that they're sharing. Yeah. And it's so vibrant, but yet just gave me huge Mobius vibes as I'm reading over this, both color and design. And the other artist, just for detail and kinetic and everything else, Jeff Darrow. Like if you've ever read The Big Guy and Rusty the Toy Robot, like I was really getting vibes of that as well. So in both cases, like, I can't pay higher compliments than this. Like this is, I'm literally picking two of my favorite artists and going, that's how good I think this looks. Mm-hmm. So I don't have a better word than wow. Just
Yeah.
like, wow, as I'm reading over this, like, wow, this is, um, this is just stunning. I can't be more excited about this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yep.
So you're saying there's a chance.
Fingers are crossed,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, I mean, the only thing is that hopefully, well, I mean, I'd be happy if they had 40-page books for the entire first year of this, honestly. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they do the team formation because, one of the things eventually, like we were kind of talking about earlier on, eventually he's going to get to the entire Legion, all these characters. That takes a lot of books to get that, a team of that size of like 20 some characters together. And, he even mentioned kinetics is on deck, but not going to be anytime soon because, I mean, there's going to a ton of other characters you have to bring in. So, he's even trying to figure out how to do all this and juggle all these characters and still have other people to bring in. So we'll see how it does it.
Yeah. I mean, it is one of those things where I think, and I say this in the nicest possible way and with as much confidence in his abilities as I can have. I think it's one of the hardest writing jobs in comics for exactly the reason that you just said. Like, he is going to launch this and it is going to be almost immediate. There are going to be people saying, hey, where's this person? Where's this person? Like, why don't you have this character? Or why did you screw up this one? Like, I can already see if it's Matter Eater Lass, I can already see a bunch of Matter Eater Lad fans being like, why did you change the gender? Like, this isn't da 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 da. And you just have to sit there and trust the process and trust your choices and say, like, look, and I know it's a crazy thing to say. It's like, give me 12 issues. Like, if I was this team, I'd be like, give us 12. And if you're not satisfied with what we're doing, like, cool, but like, we love these characters as much as you do. We want to move them forward. We're going to have a blast with this. We're going to make changes and let's just come along for the ride. And if after a year you look and go like, yep, this isn't for me, but I think if it's what I'm assuming it's going to be, like, he's going to get to a pretty good size roster within a year. I kind of feel like it's almost like, like with 5 years later where it took them a year to kind of actually just reform the Legion. And I think if he does that sort of style of like, okay, we're just going to, build characters. And I'd love to see them do those sort of 1-page little bits like Giffen was doing, where it's like, hey, here's Rimbor.
Mm-hmm.
This guy's coming. Again, like, for me being selfish, I would love to see hey, there was an antimatter accident on Earth. And then like, that's all you have to say. But I'm going to be like, I know who's coming. Like, it's just like, just stuff like that. Like, just keep feeding those. And again, like, throw in the reboot characters or the lesser characters a little bit faster. Like, get Kid Quantum 2 in there. Like, have Xanthu being one of these rebellious planets. We talked about this when we talked about Starboy.
Yeah.
Like, right? But he's gonna realize like they're gonna have all these messages and texts like, hey, pick your character, right? Why don't we see where's Timberwolf?
I'm sorry, I'm like half tuned out a little bit because I looked at that picture again where we have the 4 other Brainiacs. It just occurred to me that those are all inside. The picture is this circular motif with these 4 Brainiacs kind of walking on these oval platforms. But it just hit me that design is all inside an outline of Brainiac's head on the picture. And then he's actually down below here too with Tenzil, who is eating something as kind of constantly, which I think is another great touch.
That's the third artist I wanted to call. Yeah, it's actually his head, and then you can see his collar. That's the bottom part.
Yeah,
right. The whole thing. So that was another artist. It's a lot of Steranko, Jim Steranko, that kind of leapt out to me as I was reading this.
Okay.
Again,
yeah.
Highest compliments I can give. Like, highest compliments I can give. It is just like, I look at this and I go, okay. Again, I can't repeat the fact I was so fully expecting an artist that it's like, hey, we found this new person and they're da 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 da. And instead we get, hey, we literally have one of the best artists in comics.
Yeah, no, this is great. And I'm almost speechless, but right now I'm, the Absolute Green Lantern is probably one of my favorite of the DC books that has a sci-fi bent. And this, I can tell you right now that this is going to take its place because this is sci-fi and it's cool sci-fi. It's just, it's taking the Legion where I think places where it's needed to go for a while.
Yep. Okay. Is there anything that we missed? Anything we didn't talk about?
Man, I think we've
talked about driven this into the ground. Okay, perfect.
I mean, we're still going to have another, whatever. We're probably going to talk about it when it comes out on September 2nd is the day that this goes on sale, everybody. So go to your store and buy lots of copies.
I was actually going to say that. So yes, first, buy lots of copies. Second, if you made it to the end of this podcast, congratulations. Second, as listeners, like, would you want us to kind of immediately start putting out like our thoughts on the new issues, or would you rather we kind of wait by storyline? Like, what's your sort of take on this? Because we're trying to figure out the best way to handle this new series. So any of your input would be awesome. So please email us, longlivethelegion2025@gmail.com. Let us know what you think would be best. And if you want to listen to the two of us babble on like dum-dums as we're reading these issues and going, this is beautiful, this is beautiful, this is like, if that's an appealing for you, or if you'd rather say it's like, no guys, just stay with the past, we don't need you to be
yeah. Well, I mean, you know what, I think yes, so please give us that feedback. But the interesting thing about this, Jay, is going to be that this book is going to go past us. It's going to have its own trajectory, and we're going to be getting to some of these characters that we haven't been to yet after this has been out. So we're going to have to add these new versions into our talk tracks. In fact, we may even have to go back and talk about some of the ones we've talked about before. So
yeah, we'll go back and edit the Saturn Girl episode. Yeah. Hey, so there's this new version.
Well, yeah, I'll edit like another hour long discussion.
Yeah, we didn't talk enough about Saturn Girl.
Exactly. Yeah, and she had 2 episodes, for God's sakes.
Yeah,
anyway, but yeah, this is exciting. I'm really juiced about this. I mean, and I'm going to be, I'll probably be ranting about this on social media anyway. So everybody's going to know what I think about this one way or another.
And that's all good. All right. On that, I think we're going to close up. Well, we didn't open the Mission Monitor board. We're going to close everything up. Go pre-order this book. Walk into your comic shop. Say, I want a copy of Legion #1. Let's make this book.
No. Say you want 2 copies.
Yes, you want a special cover and you want the regular cover.
That's right.
Right? It's only $10 a month. So it's nothing. All right. On that note, we will see you on our next episode. And the last thing we say as we end every episode, long live the Legion.
Long live all the legions.
Hey.
Oh, hey, Jeff.
What's going on, guys?
Oh, talking about Superman.
Oh, cool. I could talk about Superman.
I could talk some more about Superman.
We know.
I'll bet a few people would want to get in on this.
I'm down.
You know it.
That sounds like fun. I'll do it.
Cool, let's do it. We can call the show Men of Steel.
And you can find it at certainpov.com.
Or wherever you get your podcasts.
Yay.
CPOV.
certainpov.com.